He is my co-host on Fox and Friends Weekend. He is my co-host of Off the Wall on Fox and Friends Weekend, and he is my co-host of Off the Rails now on the Will Cain Show, and he is my friend Pete Hegseth. What's up?
Dude, I love it's like crawling into your brain every 2 weeks doing your show. Like you recapping what you need to tell me about your search for a church. We're talking about that this weekend in the show for sure. Like all of these, it's a wonderful opportunity to get a sense of exactly what's on your mind. I love it.
It's the only way I know how to do this is to just be like, well, this is what I'm thinking about. This is who I am. And by the way, if you would listen to the Will Cain Show, you'd already have some insight into my search for a church. You wouldn't have to wait for Fox and Friends Weekend.
I'm just not fully caught up. Your mind works just like my wife's mind. It never stops, ever. You know, like when I finish something, it just leaves my brain and I move on to something else and I forget. You're just like processing all the time. And it's a wonderful thing. I guess that means I could be married to you in a different scenario, just not this one.
It's in a way you are. You're my homosexual television husband. You know that people do that. Like when they have a female co-host, they call them their television wife. I do find that a little bit unappealing.
I said that once and it didn't go well. Yeah.
I bet it didn't go over well at home.
No.
And you would know, by the way, my whole thing, which I have to tell you about, my trashy dating show that I've been watching and how I got on an airplane,
I did see that,
Pete, this past week. And there was many fans of Fox and Friends. So it was like, what do I do? And everyone I've told the story to has said, well, why wasn't one of your options not to watch that trash on the airplane? Don't watch Perfect Match. And I was like, no, that didn't occur to me. It was only like, how do I hide that I'm watching Perfect Match?
Never hide. That's what we're talking about today.
Never hide. And that's what is going on the Will Cain Show. Whatever's in my brain, whatever's in my life is right here with you, the Willisha, and Pete Hegseth. Let's start with number one, Pete, today. So James Carville on his show, the guys have told me the name right before the show began, but it's already been flushed. I've just been told it's called Classroom with James Carville. He said something interesting. He stands there in his LSU T-shirt looking like he just finished breakfast, no need for a shower. And in the same way he is disheveled and unvarnished, his opinions are pretty unvarnished. Hegseth, and here's what he had to say about the state of Democrats.
It's horrifying, our numbers among younger voters, particularly younger blacks, younger Latinos, or whatever, but whatever younger, I don't like younger people of color, particularly males. We're not shedding them; they're leaving in the droves.
There you go. They're not shedding them; they're leaving in droves, Pete.
Well, one, it's a reflection of a group of people that have been universally taken for granted for a very long time. But it's a new generation, right? So their parents were taken for granted, assumed there was a bargain made between them and the Democrat Party. You vote for us, we do things that are good for you or beneficial for you, or at least virtue signal in a way that your life improves. That was a generational relationship established after they bait and switched everything and basically bet on minority support as a base of the Democrat Party, saying we're the party for you. Well, now you got a new generation of young people of color, Black, Hispanic, especially men, who are saying that wasn't the deal I made. And I'm looking around at my life and y'all have gone crazy. And some of it has to do, a lot of it has to do with the economics. There's no doubt with the economy, with inflation, which the ability to raise a family, to get ahead, no doubt. That's number one. The other part of it is a social portion of the whole gender transition. All the nonsense we talk about on Fox all the time is anathema to them completely. And then you have just the variable of Donald Trump. Also, I think there's a pull effect there. I think young Black men, I don't want to speak on behalf of them, but this is stuff we see on our network and other networks all the time, recognize a persecution of somebody and they say, well, that's unfair. And he's a fighter and he stands up for himself and he fights back. And I like that. And he stands up for the country, and the country's not irredeemably racist. It's not what I've experienced because I didn't grow up the way my parents grew up. And so I don't buy all the BS being sold by the left. So I think the combination of those three creates an opportunity. And the question, Will, is, and you might have a better sense of this, is this just a Donald Trump thing, or is this a shift, a paradigm shift in parties? And I guess right now I'd see it more as a Trump and Biden thing. than it is an automatic party shift.
So I think there's a different couple layers to this, and I'm going to take Carville in the first layer exactly as he said it. He focused on men. He said black men, Latino men. So on men, I think you're absolutely right. I think it is a combination of...
I was answering mostly men. You're right.
Yeah, and I think that it is a combination of this insanity of gender ideology, and then I think it also is, the alpha persona of Donald Trump is appealing to men in general. I think the second slice of this is to expand it beyond just men when it comes to minorities, because we do see the polling that Trump is doing excellent, or better historically, thus excellent, with blacks and Latinos. And I think that has to, at some point, be about a half a century of broken promises that are papered over by grievance. Like, the other side's racist and they hate you, and so we're going to keep making you empty promises that we never have to deliver on. In some ways, there's a thing in black culture called the okie doke, right? It's like you faked me out, and I'm not going to fall for the okie doke. At some point, you got to stop falling for the okie doke, and I would humbly submit half a century. But then third is Gen Z. And I did this on Monday's episode with the hosts of Trigonometry. They're fascinating guys from the UK. And they did a thing on Gen Z, and they said, look, there's a revolution coming. There will be a revolution of some type, soft or hard. The question is, and it will be led by Gen Z, which direction does it go? Because there's a sizable contingent of young people who are into identity politics and grievances, and they are definitely in that direction. And there's another, and this is primarily male, back to Carville's original point, they're going hard the other way. And seeing it, they're just like, no, and whether or not that's like trad conservative or the whole alpha male thing. They said the virtuous version of it is Jordan Peterson. The one that's a vice is Andrew Tate. But they said there will be a reaction, and that's the way it's being pulled. So, and that leads me to this, Pete. Scott Adams, the cartoonist for Dilbert, who's very, very good on Twitter and interesting, he said, Democrats are now the party of women and men who are afraid of them. And I think, whether or not you're black or you're Latino or you're white, I actually think he nails it a little bit. It's like, who decides the direction of your household? And I'm not trying to make this a gender war, but we've talked a lot about how liberal ideology is inherently empathetic and therefore more feminine. And you need both, by the way. That's not to denigrate that perspective on the world, but you also need one full of harsh judgment and rules and resilience in life that is driven through the prism of male eyes. And the ones that don't have that are the men who are afraid of women.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not a new dynamic. The mommy party and the daddy party, Democrat Party and the Republican Party has long been a view and an understanding of how the parties are fundamentally differentiated. It's just the delta on the difference right now. It is so clear that Democrats are focusing on suburban women, and to our other conversation, minority women, specifically driving at their issues, at grievances, at economic conditions, and saying, we're the party for you. And so it's just widening more and more and more, which has relationship consequences. It has employment consequences. It has, and does it end in a soft or a hard revolution? I don't know, but it definitely leads to interesting conversations about how do you change that? I mean, what do you do as a Republican to appeal to females more directly, other than be a male that females would like, which then means you don't appeal to men the way that you do. Certainly Donald Trump isn't that guy. He is who he is, and people view him a certain way. But I think I think he's got a better chance with females than people think, because people look at their lives and the gender ideology stuff, and they at least want to jump on a sane boat.
Well, I think the answer has to be for men or women, and this is a purview of sort of the conservative future beyond Donald Trump, but it's going to require construction. What I mean by that is a positive vision. That sounds like the therapy version of construction. Men like to build things. People like to build things. Humanity likes to build things. Destruction is easy. And so in selling your vision of America, it has to be constructive. Like, it has to say, here's what I'm for, not just what I'm against.
True, but men like to build things, but I also don't want to build government. That's the big problem that conservatives have, is that it's easy for a Democrat to stand up and say, I will build you these things and I will sell you this future based on the money I'm going to spend for you. And that's always been a challenge for conservatives to go back to first principles and say, well, it's not about building government. It's about building other things.
It's about building a society, which you are an integral part in building. And here's how I'm going to enable you to be a builder. Don't outsource your building to me as a politician, but how I'm going to enable you to be the builder of society. All right, let's move to this. We kind of touched on race there for a minute. So Caitlin Clark, man, she is an absolute superstar, Pete. This is an Iowa basketball player, and I mean, 9 3-pointers. I think she went off for 41 points in their win over a defending champion LSU. But she's also become this battleground in sports and in culture at large on race. And just to put into context, Iowa and that game against LSU outrated the NBA Finals. I think all college football games save Ohio State, Michigan. It outrated, like, I would say 90% of sporting events. I can't rattle them all off, but 90% of sporting events in the calendar year or in the last 12 months. And people want to watch, right? And because of that, it's become this whole thing. Like in sports, they have this debate: is it because she's white, you know? And then she beat LSU, and that team was black. And it's got like both sides claiming the other one is doing this because of race. Jamel Hill, who's always in the race conversation, wrote this at The Atlantic. She wrote, what Caitlin Clark's fans are missing, a wider conversation about how many black women athletes have been marginalized in the sport despite their invaluable contributions. Just an example of how this has just become a proxy about race.
They always do that. I watched my first women's basketball game. What was it, 2 days ago? That game. I realized it was on. I'm like, I'm turning this on. I've heard a lot about her. I've seen little spurts about Caitlin Clark. There was the spurt of the finals last year. I know she's really good. My dad has watched a lot of her games. He was a high school basketball coach, says she's unbelievable. I said, okay, I got to watch this.
Incredible.
Let's see. I sat down. Incredible. I mean, the Steph Curry of women's basketball.
Curry.
She moves differently, sees the court differently, shoots differently. Every single movement of hers, it feels like you would watch it in a men's sport. That's what's really different about it. You're watching, you're going, I'm watching just a whole nother level of basketball, and she can shoot range and all, and their passing is so the product on the court is phenomenal. And I don't say that with any equivocation at all. And then you contrast that with all the other players who are perfectly good. They're at the top of their game. They're really, but they look like even Angel Reese. I believe it's Angel Reese. I don't want to get that wrong. Looks like a standard women's college basketball player, a very good one, but standard. Caitlin Clark just moves differently. And so that's what interested me is, wow, she really does have the chance to change the sport because she's fun to watch. That's always been my issue with the WNBA, everything else. Just you compare the product to the NBA, and it's just not as fun to watch. So I'm not going to watch it. That doesn't have anything to do with the women involved. She makes it that much more fun. And then, I had friends texting me who've never watched a women's basketball game in their life, being like, you watching this? Whoa. And then they follow up with the text, some of them, of, well, did you see that Iowa was out for the anthem and the other team was in the locker room for the anthem? I hadn't seen that part of the game. I wasn't watching at the beginning. But then you get the layers of the other stuff. But for me, I just thought it was good basketball.
Well, let me lean into your thing about standard. Like, I don't know what you meant by Angel Reese's standard, like her height or, and she's...
I'm just talking about
Angel
movement. As someone who
player.
plays the game, like when I sat on the bench for college basketball. I lived basketball my whole life. You can watch kids when they're 11, 12, 13, 14. You know this in soccer or anything else. The way they move. Like they move like an athlete that plays the sport. And they get the tempo and they get the timing and they get the lateral movement and all those things. And men and women move differently in that context. They just do. You watch the games. So I'm not saying she's a standard player. She's good for women's basketball, no doubt. Very good. But she has the same, I don't even know how you put it, sort of mannerisms of the way the women's sport goes versus Caitlin Clark, and I'm sure there are other women. I don't watch enough women's basketball to see this completely. But her ball handling, left, right, left, right, left, right, like no hesitation either way. That's like Steph Curry. Who his handles are the reason why he can get open and make the threes that he makes which is still better than everybody else. So I just immediately latched onto the fact that this woman is completely different.
Well, okay, on the standard thing. Also, by the way, yes, Caitlin Clark is white, and that differentiates her in basketball. And I don't think we have to dance around
it's
or run
inconsequential
from
to me. It means nothing to me. I mean, I
don't know if that's. If you're being honest,
no.
I don't know if that's true. So here's the thing. I don't think we have to. Let me make my argument.
It's never been the case for me in the NBA. What?
You didn't idolize Larry Bird?
My dad did, but I love John Starks. He was my favorite player. I did love Chris Mullin, but I loved Tim Hardaway. I mean, I was all over the map with who the guys I loved.
You had a Stockton jersey.
It's interesting when it's different.
You know it.
What?
You know you had a John Stockton jersey. You know
I did not. My brother loved Stockton. I didn't.
Here's my argument. Okay, we don't have to put these massive racial prisms and takeaways on the world every time race is a part of the story. And here's the thing. Race is part of the story, and it's okay to acknowledge that, but it doesn't have to be this big come to Jesus look in the mirror for us at every time into our deep souls. What I'm saying to you is it is different that Caitlin Clark is white, and it does commandeer extra attention, not because she's white, but because she is, as in your words, not standard. She's different, and it works in every way. Tiger Woods' race played a role in the fact that everyone was like, wow, look at Tiger Woods. He's different. Yes, of course, being great is the major differentiator. But, I mean, we know the stats on this, how many different people took up golf and how much more popular it became with minorities because of Tiger Woods. And in every walk of life, Danica Patrick joins NASCAR, and there's extra attention on Danica Patrick. The outlier gains attention. And if the outlier happens to be great, that becomes part of the story and helps to gain ratings and attention. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't say anything about white America or black America. It says something about humanity. It's like,
I see what you're saying.
Look, there's a statistical outlier. I think I'm going to watch that statistical outlier destroy the competition.
You're making for a value neutral argument that differentiation makes things, gives reason for attention. I get that. It's actually not that much of a case, though. I don't know. There was a really good point guard for LSU that was white that on the other team was the number one transfer in the portal. I learned that in the 15 minutes I was watching the game. So there's, I know there are a lot of other good white WNBA players. I can't name them all, but Sue Bird and others. So it's not like a massive outlier. I think the big outlier is she's just that much better. That much better.
I think that's very fair. How much better? We talk about this, could you strike out the side of a 12-year-old little league team, acknowledging the difference between male and female athletes? The women's U.S. national soccer team lost to a U15 academy team at FC Dallas. Could you, Princeton, in the tournament, I don't remember what your career stats are, how would you do in a three-point contest with Caitlin Clark?
Today, she would wipe the floor with me, okay? Today, she would wipe.
In your prime?
At my prime, when I was the other team's best player at every practice at Princeton. See, I was never our best player. I always simulated the other team's best player. And there were days when the coach would stop practice and yell at the first teamers and be like, if you can't stop Pete, what makes you think you can stop this guy? Okay? Because they couldn't stop me, Will. And the threes were deep, and they never stopped going in. So at my prime, I think it's a wash. That's how good she is. But I would never, before I watched her, I would have made a lot of braggadocious statements about my capabilities. But watching her shoot, I mean, I'm waiting for the WNBA, NBA matchup between her and Steph Curry. That will be something to watch.
So there's the headline. Pete Hegseth, in my prime, it's a wash with Caitlin Clark.
Yes. Deal.
Right.
I believe in myself, Will. I believe in my skills. I could shoot the ball, okay?
Well, one thing I know about you is your television skills. And I really love doing TV with you because we're playing a different game. We're on a different level right now, and I don't feel a lack of humility right now in saying that. We're playing games within the game. We're messing with each other. We're throwing sticks in the gear works of each other's television to see what we can do. So here's what I want to ask you. My old friend, still my friend, Dan Orlovsky at ESPN had a moment on the Pat McAfee show. I think we have it. I don't know if we have video. We definitely have audio. I want you to hear what happened with Dan. It's an audio clip, which is all that's important in this clip with Pat McAfee.
It's impossible to be at the top at both of those, essentially. Like, it's
Another farting.
So there it is, Hegseth. Now, I will say, in Orlovsky's defense, he showed complete ignorance, played dumb, did not know what they were talking about because they didn't rake him over the coals. And I think he's gone to social media since then, and he was doing this show from his car. You can see it in the video.
Important detail, Will.
He says it was the windshield wipers.
Yes.
He says it was the windshield wipers. Have you had, first, do you believe Orlovsky? Second, what is your biggest on-air mishap? Besides,
I watched it back.
Well, I know what your answer is going to be.
I believe Orlovsky.
I know what your answer is going to be on the biggest mishap.
I believe him. It sounded like a windshield wiper. He deadpanned for like, he looked angry almost. He deadpanned for like 30 seconds. But I liked the reaction. I like that they're in a show where that kind of react. I mean, I guess that's what McAfee does, right? And I think that's part of his success is that they own every angle that the viewer can understand.
Before you give me your biggest on-air mishap, I'm actually with you. I think that was too cartoonish. It was too over the top. Like if you ripped that, you could not play it off. I think your face would turn red. I don't think you could feign that level of ignorance. That was a cartoonish fart. And let me just tell you something. They may have it may have been a drop. They may have set him up. They're friends and they have that kind of relationship on the show. It was either windshield wipers or a drop. There's no way that was real.
No, I don't think it was. It really wasn't. A drop is interesting. They all reacted universally in the moment, which means they were listening, which means he was saying something they wanted to hear. What is my biggest on-air mishap? You say you know it. I mean, I know the ones that got the most publicity. I know what it is on a daily basis. Like every day on the show at 6 a.m., I sweat. And every day it comes out of my forehead. And every day you and Rachel give me a tissue and I have to wipe it off. I don't know what it is. I've been doing the show for like 10 years. But right when the light comes on, it's not nerves. It's just like body reaction. And then after 6:05, I'm clear. I'm good.
Yeah.
But whatever that first 5 minutes, and now you guys are waiting for it and just watching it and probably trying to induce it even more. I don't know. I mean, I did hit someone with a sharp object live on TV, so that was bad. But that wasn't the kind of thing
you axed somebody. That's your biggest on-air mishap.
My biggest on-air mishap, and I'm not normally supposed to talk about it. But it wasn't the type of thing that you could acknowledge on air. And it was resolved and all of that. I think it's what can I acknowledge on air as a mishap? I said the hand washing thing that went, internationally viral about not believing in germs, but I liked that. It was not a mistake. So I think it's not that we don't make mistakes. I think the key to TV is just
we own them.
Being open about them all the time.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah, we do that. We own our mistakes. I mean, I don't think we do much on Fox and Friends that we don't just go, oh, well, that just happened. All right, take a look at this. Take a look at this.
What's yours? What are you going to do, not share?
I don't know. Well, no, I didn't prep that. I don't know what my biggest on-air mishap is. I've never done that. I never passed gas on air. I don't know, man.
Ripped your pants? You ripped your pants.
Huh? Oh, I ripped my pants. Yeah, I ripped my pants. Stupid Fox and Friends show that makes me do all this kind of dumb things like ride inflatable horses.
Horse race, you rip your pants.
Yeah, that's got to be it.
Horses. Yep.
Yeah, so my whole
toward
backside hanging out.
Dignity for you. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing about this show as well. It's destroyed my dignity, so I don't have any anymore. I don't remember any big mishaps. That's Fox and Friends. Here is some beer rankings for you, Hegseth. These are the top beers across the world according to generation. Millennials, Heineken, Modelo, then 3 versions of Corona. White Claw comes in at number 6. Gen X, Guinness number 1, Heineken 2, Corona 3, Modelo 4, Sam Adams 5. Boomers, what's interesting is same as Gen X, basically, but Coors, Miller Lite, and no Bud Light, Michelob Light made their way into the top 10. Very few domestics for millennials and Gen X. Miller Lite came in at 10 for both of them. So that's my big takeaway from this is the popularity of Mexican beer and that millennials are into White Claw.
Yeah, the White Claw is a big hit against that group. Wait, was Bud Light, was this post Bud Light? And so Bud Light didn't make any of the lists?
I didn't even notice that until I was reading this list to you. When was this taken? This is 2023, quarter 4, 2023.
Staggering.
Yeah, no Bud Light.
Staggering downfall. I bet Bud Light would have been, I mean, certainly up there with Miller Lite and Coors Light and all that. Yet again, my mindset is much more with the boomers than it is with anybody else. I didn't realize how good Modelo is until I tried it after the whole Bud Light thing. It's pretty good. Guinness is too much. Can't be regularly consumed. I like a good local IPA. I don't know why. Higher ABV. That's what I go for. You know, if I'm going to drink it, give me something
too
for
bitter.
it.
Too bitter.
I don't know. I like it. But
IPAs.
when I want to extend the day and watch sports, Coors Light. There you go.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I feel like Modelo's now in that group. Coors Light, Miller Lite, Modelo is the way I go. I don't know why every generation likes Heineken. I'm not a Heineken guy at all.
Doesn't really do anything for me. It doesn't. And neither, I mean, I do like Sam Adams though. And I'll try the seasonal flavors. I don't know why, because it feels patriotic. They got me. It feels like I'm at the revolution. So I drink Sam Adams.
All right, final topic here with Pete Hegseth on Off the Rails here on the Will Cain Show. So you're a perfect person to run this by. I have a theory. Of course I do. And my theory is the best-sized cities in America are somewhere between 100 and 300,000 people. And I have nominated Knoxville, Tennessee up there with maybe the best city in America. I think Knoxville's great. Lived outside of Knoxville for several months. It's big enough that you have everything you want, but not so big that you lose a sense of community. You can know, not everyone, but you can know a pretty big-sized portion of that community. It's big enough that it can satisfy your ambitions, meaning whatever your career, you don't have to move away. You can have a really nice job and career in a place like that. I grew up in a much smaller town, right? Below 100,000 in Texas. And I understand the pull towards bigger markets when it comes to your career. And there's other cities. It's not just Knoxville. All my buddies hate it when I say Waco. Lubbock is 200,000. I think it's a great sized city. It doesn't mean that one in particular. Mm-hmm. But you just did this thing where you moved to Nashville, and I know you had like a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet with everything you wanted from a city, from the airport to the classical Christian education. Did you think about the perfect size for city when you moved to Nashville?
Definitely. We didn't want to go big. And I guess Nashville could be considered that, but where we're living definitely is not. I mean, I had to factor in flights to New York, though, as you have to factor in. So Dallas makes a ton of sense. Nashville made a ton of sense. There's like 20 flights a day to New York City, the various airports. I can get there anytime I want. We looked at Knoxville. There's a great classical Christian school there. Can't get the flights. Everything. I mean, so I think we are in a bit of a different scenario, but we were looking at Jacksonville. We were looking at Fort Myers. We were looking at Tampa. We were looking at Raleigh's a great size city. Fits kind of exactly what you're talking about. I think it's maybe 150, 200,000. It's a capital town though. So it's a little bit lib for my liking. They still had the masks going on when I was there. And we were like, I love the classical Christian school this year, but I can't do it. I think you're right. The other glitch for me is I can't help sports teams. Like I love having the ability to have access to major sports teams. And obviously you have UT at Knoxville, or, you've got University of Tennessee. Even Nashville falls short. Like it doesn't have an NBA team. There's one in Memphis. Doesn't have a baseball team, but we got a great AAA team. There's a hockey team, but I'm not really a hockey guy. There are the Titans, so NFL's awesome. I do like having sports. So maybe, you look at Minneapolis, St. Paul, where I grew up, it had all 4 sports teams. St. Paul, I always liked St. Paul a little bit more. It was a smaller, more blue-collar town. I'm with you. I don't want to be in a Chicago. I don't want to be in a LA. I don't want to be – New York's a whole nother beast. Dallas is huge, and Nashville's pretty big too, but you come to Nashville and you can hit the downtown in 5 minutes. It's not that big.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you live in the country.
Kind of have a small town feel.
You live in the country and you're 20 minutes away from downtown, you told me.
Yeah.
Which that's awesome.
That's good.
There's I don't know, I'm sitting there thinking of other cities that fit my criteria, maybe like Jackson, Mississippi's in that in that range. Birmingham, Alabama.
Birmingham,
is in that range.
Alabama.
And what happens is, you're right about the sports teams, and it doesn't satisfy Birmingham and Jackson, but you often, Knoxville does, your sports team becomes if you're a college town. You know, Lubbock is all about Texas Tech, Waco's all about Baylor, Knoxville's all about Tennessee. That's what replaces your love of professional sports in that
I think that
size
could
of
work.
city,
I just
which
grew
is
up with
pretty
such a
good.
deficit of college sports that I don't relate to it, but I think I could get into it.
All right. Another fun edition of Off the Rails. I know you got to go work the land. Man's nothing without land, and Hegseth's got to go work the land.
100%.
Thanks, Hegseth. I'll see you this weekend on Fox.
Good to see you.